Hello and welcome to the 37th episode of When I Was Your Age, a podcast celebrating the careers, callings, and creativity of some friends of mine. I'm your host, Roland Parker, and as always, it is a joy, pleasure, and a treat to have you here. Today's guest is Sophia Warner, and I'm really excited to check in with her, see what she's up to, and we'll learn a little bit about what she's been doing here lately. Before we bring her into the stream, make sure that you follow the Instagram at WIWYA pod. And thank you guys so much for the support week in and week out. I know it's been a while since we've posted at this time, but we are currently at 1,448 followers, which means a lot to me. We have far surpassed what is on my personal Instagram, so it's a little bizarre to look at that number. If you found your way here for the first time, consider giving us a follow. We'd love to have you. You can do that on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or Amazon Podcasts. You can also watch episodes on YouTube if that's a little more your speed. And if you made your way back here, welcome back. Make yourself at home. Good to have you here. All the links for those places are available in the link tree in the Instagram bio. And I think that's going to conclude our housekeeping here. So without further ado, let's bring Sophia onto the stage. Sophia, how's it going with you? What's been up with you?
Not much. I mean, it's definitely been a fun season in the swing of things. Just hit my year mark at work, so feel like I'm moving and grooving. Yeah.
That's awesome. It's always cool to kind of get to those points too, because you can see it's like a good moment to check back and see like how you've grown and what all has changed even within organization and stuff like that. That's awesome. So and you're going to a wedding this weekend, is that correct?
Yes. So we are going to my boyfriend's, I guess, big at Bama is getting married. It's in Princeton, which wild coincidence. I've met just a bunch of individually, and then they all know each other, girls from Princeton that like now live and work in DC. And they had their reunion last weekend. So I texted them and made like a Google map, like sheet of all the places to eat and like things to do. So I feel like it's kind of like when people come to Tuscaloosa, and like you want to tell them a good time, like go to the Strip, go to Galette's, like they kind of gave me their swing of things. So I know it's a different campus, but I'm really excited to see it and excited to be there. I love a good wedding. Yeah. Excited to dance.
That'll be cool. You've got the inside scoop with those folks. That's great. Love that. I love a good wedding. Are you at a point too where you're going to just like what feels like hundreds of weddings?
Yeah, I mean, there was a time where the only wedding I had gone to was a Bulgarian wedding. So I had like that image of just like being a kid running around, not really having a purpose, like just kind of being there, like seen, not heard. And now everyone is kind of getting married and I'm like, all right, let's do it. And I got called out too, because usually, I mean, I don't have a lot of like dresses and like formal attire and their themes. And one of my friends was like, hey, I'm getting married and it's pastels. So no black. I was like, okay, great. Great.
Oh.
I was like, good call out. Great. So, but it's a fun time. We have this wedding in Princeton and then that friend who wants all pastels, she's getting married in France. So we'll be in France in July, which will be fun because that's where the Olympics are too. So I'm excited.
Oh, that's cool. It's gonna try and make a stop by, go check out an event. I don't know about the timing, but
I mean, if something is like there and we just wander, or if like, I was a swimmer, like if someone's like Katie Ledecky's on the street, sure, I will say hey, but it'll be fun to go back. I miss Europe a lot. So we'll see what's going on there.
Absolutely. Well, if you listeners are not already, make sure that you follow Sophia on Instagram. We've got the @ up there in the stream, and we'll add it to the description of the podcast episode as well. So this is something that I wanted to start doing, was asking people about their Instagram handles and like their usernames and stuff. So as I feel like I've seen this for forever for you. So what can you tell me about it?
Yes. Okay. So this is my full name is Sophia Zornitza Warner. So it's SOZOWA. And I think for some reason, I remember that we all in high school, maybe like even college, like wanted cool Instagram like handles and stuff. And my friend Claudia, she had a fun when it was like Claude doing things, or like hers was really cool. And I was like, dang, like I should make mine. And at some point, she just started calling me Sozo, and I was like, I'm gonna do Sozo well. Like I think that flows really well. And so now I will, yeah, I like it. I don't ever want to change it. But that is the story behind my Instagram handle. So yeah.
Nice. I love it. I think it's funny too when people start referring to each other as like their Instagram handles sometimes, like in a little bit of like of a teasing way.
Oh yeah.
It's just always kind of a fun thing
Oh yeah.
there.
And
All
like
right.
when
Well, I've
people,
got some.
oh sorry, go ahead, go ahead.
No, you go first.
I was gonna say when people change, because that happened to me the other day. This girl got married, and I was like,
Mm.
I don't remember her original last name. And I was trying to find, she does like cool tech stuff. And I was like, I need to like want to DM her on Instagram, and could not find her. So if you're thinking about changing it, don't, because then I can't find you.
There we go. Mine is pretty lazy, nothing fun. It's just like first name dot last name. So that's I
Yeah.
wish that I had something more iconic and fun. But thanks for indulging me on that. All right, I do have some get to know you questions. We like to ask everybody these. So we'll dive right into those. Where are you from, and where do you currently live?
Yeah, so I kind of claim a little bit of all over. So I was born in Seattle, actually at the University of Washington campus, like in their little hospital campus, which wild coincidence, went to the University of Alabama, and now UW's head coach will be Alabama's head coach. So very excited for that. I guess go Huskies, roll Tide. But was born in Seattle, lived in Bulgaria briefly with my family for a few years. Then we moved back to Seattle, then Danville, Kentucky, and then Birmingham, Alabama. So starting in the 5th grade, that's when we moved. I remember crying. I was so scared, like did not know what to expect. Everyone in Kentucky asked if they spoke the same language in Alabama. And I was like, I don't know. I don't know. And so I have claimed Alabama as home, especially now living in DC. There are a lot of folks from Alabama. And then just when you meet folks who don't know about Alabama, or, only associate it with football, it's just nice to bring light to just all the other work that we do in the state. And I'm able to do that through my current job as well. So it's a lot of just like pride, to be able to like represent constituents in Alabama, and then also have a connection as well, and kind of understand where they're coming from when certain issues arise. So yeah.
Yeah. It's nice. Love that. And where you living currently? Like what area specifically?
I am in Eastern Market, like Capitol Hill area in DC.
Okay.
So it's really cute, like little row homes. And I get to walk to work. So it's a 15-minute walk to work. So I'm very, very thankful for that.
Oh, that's awesome. That's the dream, is to just kind of roll out, get ready, sip some coffee, and then make it out
Yeah.
the door and go ahead to it. I love that.
Yeah.
All right. So what is it that you do?
So I am technically broad stroke, I'm a staffer on the Hill. So I work as specifically a legislative assistant, for Representative Dale Strong. So we represent kind of all of North Alabama, and I handle his space science and technology portfolio. So any issues that come into that like kind of umbrella, that is like my jurisdiction. I do education, infrastructure, transportation, energy and commerce, kind of. If you think about like when we were kids, like I'm just a bill, like schoolhouse for all, it's a little bit of that, and then a lot of chaos and fast-paced work, but every day is different. I love it. I get to meet with constituents and like talk to them about just what like matters to them, and legislation that they're tracking, and ways that we can, collaborate or work with them to solve certain issues. And then the science portfolio is my favorite. I have a very big soft spot in my heart for space policy. I think all my friends in DC know that. My friends in grad school do too. So get to work with a lot of space companies, and we represent Huntsville. So we have, Rocket City, USA, propulsion, capital of the nation. We have Space Camp, which is awesome. We have Marshall Space Flight Center. And then we also have Redstone Arsenal, which does a lot of like missile defense, missile warning, missile tracking. So it's nice that there was an alignment when I took this job of having an expertise in space and science and tech, having that like paired with Alabama, and then just overall working with the best team. My boss was in local government for 26 years and just gets it. So I'm very, very thankful for that and just love our team. It's kind of odd being away today. Like I left my work phone upstairs and I'm like, am I missing something? But I will see them on Monday.
It's you got some FOMO there. Well, I love the connection with all of the outer space work. My mom's family is from Huntsville, and my grandfather was an engineer at Boeing. So that like all of those kind of connections that kind of we have. There's like a Boeing mug at my parents' house that I always kind of gravitate to when I'm having coffee at their place. But yeah, I love that. That's such a cool thing. Theme of the podcast or one theme that we kind of look at is age and stuff like that. So how old are you? We like to throw that out there.
I was joking with our interns about this on yesterday. I'm 26. So feeling good, my back hurts a little bit, but that's okay. I'm feeling good, taking my vitamins. I don't know. I always make this joke just because I noticed it in grad school a little bit. Obviously, like grad school can be a melting pot of folks who are coming straight from, undergrad, or folks who've worked for a little bit or served and then are coming back. And then on the Hill too, like you see a lot of young people, but you see older folks too. So in my head, everyone on the Hill is 25. Like you're 25. And then if I see like a gray hair, you're 40. Like there's no in between. And I usually don't ask, like I'm not going to ask, but that's kind of how I see it in my head. And so I'm 26, but like I will stay at 25 until I see like a little white.
Yep. Yeah. There we go. Yeah. It's that dichotomy. I'm 25 until proven 40. That's perfect. Love it. So what piece of media are you currently enjoying? So think like book, podcasts, music, TV. What's kind of like your go-to? Could be for professional development, could be for just enjoyment, fiction, anything you like. What are you kind of going to right now?
I know everyone says this, like I need to read more, and I'm so bad. I think I'm still in grad school mode where I'm actually reading like nonfiction of, like Artemis, Apollo, John Glenn, the first rockets. And I feel like I need to mark them up and like take notes. Like I will actively be taking notes and then it takes me way too long. I just finished, I'm a little all over the place. I'm in a transition, but I finished Julia Fox's audiobook on Spotify.
Okay.
I used to like never do audiobook, but she narrates it in like wild story. I just, kind of follow her on social media. I think she's kind of iconic. And so I finished her audiobook. And then 2 nights ago, I started Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Because I've never read it, which is wild. Like I do space policy, but I actually have like never really seen Star Wars, never watched Star Trek. Like it wasn't my story with space. And like, we can talk about that later. It's definitely a little different. Like I wasn't the space nerd. I wasn't like the STEM girly. So I'm doing that. And then I'm super into like the day lists that Spotify does. And it has now become an inside joke of like sending them to my friends and being like, what's your vibe for the morning? And it's always funny. It's like random adjectives. Like mine will be like standing on business or like melodramatic evening. I'm like, what is it? I don't know what it means, but I definitely like just let the energy like embrace the vibe for whatever time of the day it is. So yeah, I'm doing that. And I really like morning brew, like daily in the mornings. I think they have like fun stories, and it's more kind of like tech, like trade, economic stuff, like kind of like frat guys. That's kind of their vibe, but I think they're really funny. And I listen to them on the way to work. And like any Hill staffer, we have our it's like Jake Sherman. He's some guy who like does the rundown of he's like the daily Punch Bowl news. So on the way to work, just being like, okay, like this is what's like we're voting on today. Like it's good to, especially with all the issues, like every week looks different. We can be voting on a variety of different things, everything from like renaming a post office, like there's legislation there, to, you know, wonky like transportation issues. There was a crypto bill a few weeks ago. And so you have to kind of like get smart on these issues really fast. And so listening to podcasts like in the morning definitely like triggers my brain of like, okay, we're on financial services mode, or we're on like accountability and like oversight mode. So yeah, a little all over the place, but I'm really excited for the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, because that'll be a nice fun read. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. I hadn't really thought about like immediate like breakdown and like rundown of like immediate I just policy like issues, but like voting topics and stuff like that, like using podcasts as a resource to kind of like stay on the up with those things, because I imagine that it's just like drinking from a fire hose. Like there's just, it's like a constantly like trying to stay on top, but like you're never going to be all the way caught up, like kind of thing. It's just ever changing, ever evolving.
Yeah, it definitely is. And that was like one of the big like learning curves. As I walked in, I was like, y'all, like I'm the space girl. Like, let me do space. We can talk about mission authorization, launch and reentry, like all of this, like really, it's a beautiful thing, because you got the engineers, you know, working on the hardware and working on the licensing, and then it kind of trickles over to the policy side. And so that, I love getting in the weeds, but at the same time, like you have to put on your North Alabama hat and realize that like there are folks who are interested, like my passion for space is someone else's passion for education or roads or, you know, veterans affairs, whatever it might be. And so being able to match that energy, and like if someone calls and wants to talk on the phone for however long about an issue within my portfolio, like I'm all ears, right? So it's really, really fun though, because I think every day is different. And if we ever need help, or if there's ever a way where we can like engage the community and say, hey, like we're working on this bill, how would it impact you all? Like they're so quick to pick up the phone and talk to us. So I'm very, very grateful for that expertise as well.
Yeah, that's got to be a really unique way to just get to interact with, I don't know, some of the issues that are on a local level and national too. You get a really cool window, I imagine, of just seeing what's going on.
Oh yeah.
Love that. So what is something that you'd consider a luxurious necessity? So be thinking here of something that's maybe integrated into your routine. You could potentially do without it, but you'd be kind of white knuckle holding onto it, not really ready to let it go. What kind of pops up in your head when I say that?
Okay, so first thing, definitely like anything skincare. And then my friends know I'm super big on like the ice rollers, the gua sha. I have probably like 4. It's only because like one broke, and then I said I need more, like just in case. But in the morning, like I am not a human until I have one of the little cubes. And so you fill it up with water and it turns into ice overnight. And then I just like all over the face. And then I have my like ice rollers. I have all that. So I would be very, very sad if someone took this away from me. And yeah, I'm very big into like the steaming, I don't know, like any kind of like homemade, like some girl on Instagram was doing like turmeric honey face mask. So I was like, I'm going to do turmeric honey face mask. But I think it's important, obviously, like sunscreen and all the basics too. But yeah, don't take away my eye rollers or my ice, anything ice. I will be upset.
Nice. Love that. I'm very basic when it comes to the stuff like that, but I do have like my routine of like scraping like with my knuckles of like the certain like zones on my face. Like I have to do it in the shower, because I really do feel like just from like a breathing standpoint, like kind of moving stuff through like the sinuses and stuff. Like I gotta make it happen. But I love that. That's a good answer. Do you have any bits that you're doing, running jokes with yourself or close friends that you do? I imagine that you've probably got something. I feel like I'm seeing them kind of turn over in your head.
I'm like my life is a bit, I have a lot, for sure. Like, where do I start? At work. Okay. So I told the girls at work that I wanted to talk about this because I think it's so funny. So we have a few, like obviously when Congress is in recess, it's like 9 to 5, we're chilling. But then when we're in session, like we are there until voting is like over. And so sometimes like we'll be voting might be over, and it's kind of this like open floor plan. So there's I guess 1, 2, 3, 4, like 5 of us in kind of just one room. And I like it. Like it's not cubicle style. We can all like see each other talk. But whenever someone gets up, like the first person to get up to leave, we'll go, not to be that girl, like not to be that girl, which is really funny. And then I have started saying, and it's kind of bad, but people have picked up on it. So I keep on like rolling with it. But if I'm asked to do something at work or like, it kind of has a lot of different uses. I don't just do it at work, but I'll say like heard or like, oh, word. So like, it could be everything from my boss saying like, hey, like hold off on this memo, or like, hey, like let's pivot to this. And I'll just say heard, you know, like, or on Teams, heard. Or one of my friends will text me and be like, oh gosh, not to call anyone out, like I reconnected with like an old high school flame, like he spent the night, and I'll be like, word, heard, a word, like that's kind of like I feel you, I hear you. So there are a lot. And then Will and I, my boyfriend and I definitely have, I feel like I've seen this on Instagram, but like you have your own language. Like, I don't know if you feel that,
Yes.
But we definitely like, I don't know how it started, but at some point, like if we get like annoyed or if like something is like not angry, but I'll be like, best friend. And like yesterday I said something and he's like, I heard it. I heard the best friend. And so I don't know. I feel like I love that though with friends, especially because I don't get to see a lot of like my Bama friends, my high school friends a lot. Like DC's great. And I love the DC folks from Bama, from grad school, like Hill folks. But a lot of my friends are West Coast. A lot of my friends moved abroad. So just having like our inside little bits, like makes me feel like more connected to them.
It's a good touchstone, a good like grounding like point for that. That's I think it's a really crucial piece of like connection there, and I like that a lot. Also, I'm also really big on herd. I think the bear did that to me with just like like it, like people like started saying it like a whole lot. Just heard chef even
behind chef.
It's a behind. Yeah. I love that. I think that taking that to any environment that's not like a professional kitchen is like very funny to me. So I love that.
I wish I had like I watched one, and I love like Jeremy Allen White, like love the cast. I watched one episode and I was like shake. Like it's so intense. Yeah. And that's my thing too, is like TV and like shows. I'm just not, I used to watch a lot, like used to watch like all the sitcoms, and now like I'll watch Abbott when it comes out every week. I think it's so precious. And like I'm a former teacher, whole family, mom's side is teachers. So like I love that story and I think it's funny, but I'm not watching TV as much. So the bear definitely had a grip on a lot of folks. But
that's fun. My wife couldn't really watch the bear because of just, it's like kind of high octane and like it's high pressure situations and stuff. We had to really pace ourselves on West Wing for a while, because like we couldn't watch multiple episodes in a row because of just like, I don't know, they're dealing with nukes, or they're dealing with like everything is like worst case scenario all the time. And I was like, you know what, I might need like an episode of New Girl to really like like cleanse my palate or something if I'm gonna go to bed, or like
that's what Will and I do if we watch anything, because we watched it's with John Hamm, and he like is the wife, and it's a whole thing. If you've seen it, you'll know what I'm talking about. But it's like John Hamm is in it, and he's this like cowboy mayor, and it's super intense, and like it's a whole series. I don't know, I forgot the name, but we watched that and it was great, but very intense. And I'd be like, I need an episode of Futurama, or I need like King of the Hill, like something to laugh. Otherwise, I will like have nightmares. Like I am very, and that's another, speaking of bits, and I don't like this one, and Will started it, but if he scares me, if we're in his house or my house and he spooks me, instead of saying like boo, he'll be like, you'll never make it, or like you never make it in a horror movie. I'm like, that's true. And now I'm scared. And now like I'm taking it personally and I'm scared.
It's a good thing I'll never be in one, hopefully.
Yeah.
I love that. All right. Next question here. What I really like about this question is getting to compile all the answers and having them in one spot in a playlist, so you guys can go and listen to the answers, including the one that Sophia is going to give. But if you had the opportunity to replace the national anthem with any song on your playlist, could be on the iPod Shuffle or the iPod Nano from back in the day, could be on the on the Spotify day list. What song would that be? And tell me a little bit about that.
Okay, so I know you asked this question. I listen, and I've been like listening to people's answers. And I think like my immediate reaction, like I haven't put thought into this more so than just when I think national anthem. I think when Lana Del Rey did national anthem in the music video was her and A$AP Rocky, who I adore. I think that was like my Roman Empire. So I don't know if I would necessarily like replace it, but when I think of national anthem, I think of that collab and how like the hold that had on me. Like I'm pretty sure it was like my wallpaper at some point, like her and A$AP, because I'm pretty sure they're playing out the whole like JFK, like Marilyn romance too. So that is what I think about. But honestly, like I'm actually also bad about that. Like I listen to songs, like I love a variety of different artists. But then when someone makes me like think of a song, or if I have to like, do not make me cue anything, like I can't, like I just can't do it like immediately. But I got a good hint in college from a friend who DJ'd. He said, if you ever don't know what to play at a song or like at a party, no hands, Waka Flocka, because that gives you enough time to actually like synapse your brain and think of something else. But no hands will like get the people going. So absolutely. I know that wasn't your question, but I know you ask it, and I've been thinking about it for a long time, and I just Lana Del Rey A$AP, like that's what it is.
That's perfect. Yeah, I also great tip from the DJ friend with no hands. That's what a good way to buy time. If in a high pressure situation, you need to cue something up. I am also kind of like that, where I have like a ton of songs that I love and I've heard a million times, but have like never bothered to like look at the title of like while it's like playing. So I'm like, I know the song, I know some of the words even, but I don't know if I could look it up or like tell you who sings it. So that's good. So specifically, it's as presented by Lana Del Rey is your option there. Nice.
Yeah.
I like that.
The song is called National Anthem too, so it's like I'm not going to sing it. But she says, "Tell me I'm your national anthem" or something like that. So that is what I would replace it with. But no, I mean also too, and I don't know if you remember this, like swim meets and stuff, they would always play the national anthem before like events and everything. And I just remember getting so nervous. And like, in addition to it's like your event and you're in like a tight, like racing suit. And I would always just be like, like the national anthem means like it's time to go. And so obviously fully recognize like the significance and like have been to like Fort McHenry, where like Francis Scott Key, wrote the national anthem. But at the same time, like immediate thought is like I'm in swim mode and I'm scared and I'm nervous and like I gotta get into swim mode.
It's the signifier of like, all right, it's time for business. It's time for the for the action. I feel that. That makes sense to me. Love that. Great answer. Well, like I said, if you are listening and you want to hear some of what people have had to say, what some of the answers there, then you can go find the playlist in the link tree. I listen to it from time to time if I'm kind of unsure about what to listen to, and it's always funny of like when I see people like I'm like, oh yeah, this was Hassan's answer, or this was Juwan's answer. It's like cool to get that going. Last question before we go into your story is, how do we know each other?
I think like high school, right? Like high school and swimming. And yeah, it's hard. Like not that I've forgotten so much, but it's been so long. But I still remember, like just being at school, we swam a lot. I swam a lot. That was my life for a really, really long time. So I remember, I think like swim team more than high school sometimes, and like more than class. But yeah.
So that's for sure. I think that you probably would have known Max through swimming
Yeah.
more than you would have known me if I had to guess too, because he stuck around with it much longer. He was also better at it. And so that,
Yeah.
that's what it was. So, and I think of it too with like growing up in like the same school system that was fairly large and like for, I was in at the K through 12. You came in like the fifth grade. Um, it's I feel like sometimes it's hard to remember exactly where you like first like knew somebody from, like because everybody around you, you're like, oh yeah, that is this person, and like I was maybe in their fourth grade class, or like you're trying to remember. It's hard to pin it down exactly. So
No, for sure. And we did have, I mean, I remember like going to grad school and like even at Bama, like talking about folks like they had 100, 200 people in their grade max, right? Like I know a lot of folks from Texas had like 1,000, which like a whole campus, but we had a big class. And I feel like
yeah.
everyone too kind of like went the way my mom gave a really good metaphor when I was like graduating from Bama. She's like, she kind of said it's like a billiards table and all the little balls kind of like go everywhere. And we're still kind of on the table, like we're still connected to the game and like connected to everything, but we were still going in our own little pockets. So I think like that's a very beautiful like way to say it. And to this day, like I love talking about our high school, love talking about Birmingham. And it's wild too, like how many folks had dinner with a friend yesterday and he was like, have you heard of a school called Birmingham Southern? I was like, yes, like I know exactly where it is with everything going on there. So a lot of folks know about us. So I'm glad, always happy to talk about like Birmingham and where I'm from.
Yeah, I like that a lot. I like the metaphor that your mom offered up for that. I think that's a really really beautiful way to put that as well. It's cool, and especially too when there's um like connections that pop up, like even just after, like you could have been running along like parallel with somebody for years and years, never really cross paths, and then like you go to Bama, and then all of a sudden you become friends, and you're like, oh wow, like we were never really like close in high school, but now this connection is blossoming. I love that.
Yeah.
All right, well let's get into what it is that you do. I love getting to catch up, but let's get down to business here. How far back could you draw the line to your current career path? Because like for me, I have like a certain image in my head of you doing like mock trial and like We the People and all
Yeah.
that kind of stuff, and that connection makes sense, a lot of sense to what you're doing now. But I'm wondering, does it go back further? And tell me about that.
Yeah, no, I was thinking about We the People today as a lot actually, just because the way the government works and like everything that I've learned just in the 1 year of how like voting works and procedural stuff, like we could have done our best. We could have won We the People and we still would have been scraping the surface, you know? So I think, yeah, no, you're right. I mean, I think in high school and especially growing up, having the Alabama connection, but then also having the Bulgaria connection with my mom and being named after the capital, I think I told everyone, I was like, I'm going to work for the UN. Like, I'm going to serve, like, I'm going to represent Bulgaria. Like, I really enjoyed Model UN. I really enjoyed mock trial too. I did it for 2 years in college, and then pivoted over. We started this like legal research club, which was really cool, like soliciting articles. And I enjoyed it. But then at the same time, whenever I kind of like looked into law school and like felt out the environment, keeping in mind that like education is so important to me and my family. And I've always grown up kind of in the classroom, like would follow my mom to the stage. She's a theater professor. Like her students would let me, hang out with them. I remember making origami with them. I always felt like the classroom was like a safe space where you should be able to debate or talk or raise your hand and be like, this makes no sense to me. And I didn't really feel that from like a lot of law schools that I like shadowed. Like I would love the one-on-one that I'd have with a person, like anyone who
Mhm.
I'd reach out to and say, hey, tell me about your law school experience. They'd love to chat about it. But at the same time, when I'd actually be in that environment, it just felt a little off for me. And
Mhm.
so this all kind of culminated into a conversation with my German professor, And I was saying, like, I want to do international relations or do something with an international focus. I, at the time, was not looking at space at all, like, was not on my radar, because, like, you grow up and you're told, like, you're good at math and science or you're good at history and reading, and if it's the latter, then, like, off to law school you go, right? And so my professor recommended that I apply for Fulbright, and I did, and I got it, and I got placed in Berlin, which was absolutely incredible. And my school had a lot of international students, and so I was able to connect with them. Like, a lot were from Turkey, a lot were from Poland, like, just different areas in Europe, in Eurasia type kind of nexus. And so was able to talk to them about my identity and, like, what it means to be Bulgarian, but also have, like, the Alabama connection. And I think in Europe, like, they know the song Sweet Home Alabama, and so, like, they associate Alabama with certain things. And so being able to connect on that level. And then when I was there, it was kind of a random, like, odd niche, but they had, like, if you did, you know how we had, like, AP and honors, like, in school, if you were on, in my high school in Berlin, if you were studying English and you were on, like, that AP English language track, they had one unit, so, like, a whole semester on the future. Like, what is the world gonna look like what are robots doing? And their textbook just was, like, not fun. Like, I feel like when you're talking about robots, when you're talking about, like, nuclear weapons, when you're talking about rockets going up, like, that invokes a sense of imagery, right? And so I started pulling, at the time, I was subscribed to a newsletter. It was like Axios Space. They don't have it anymore. They aren't running it. And there's been a lot of space newsletters that have popped up. But I saw this newsletter and I was like, y'all, like, we got to get y'all looking at the NASA logo. We got to look at, they call it the meatball. Like, let's start looking at NASA. Let's start looking at these rockets, like, just kind of pulling in images. And then I started looking. At the time, I was like, well, I don't know what I'm going to do. COVID hit. So at the same time, I'm teaching hybrid, talking to the kids online, like, pulling up my screen, like, hey, look at this. Hey, like, look at this website. And I started looking into, like, law schools and grad schools, and ended up kind of finding the Fletcher School, which is where I went to grad school. And at Fletcher, they have a lot of different concentrations. So all in all, the master's is in law and diplomacy. They call it the MAL. But I specifically chose to do security studies and technology policy. But I was like, no one's talking about space. Like, why are we not, like, we use satellites for everything, like, everything from having farmers, you know, track, like, crop yield and precipitation, to earthquakes, to, you know, communications between, like, the DoD. Like, space is integrated into everything, and at the same time has this beautiful artistic, like, messaging to it. And so I just became, like, I was like, I got to establish a brand. Like, no one is talking about it. I'm going to be the space girl. And I full sent it. And at the time, I knew nothing. Like, I got all the books, and, like, being in Boston, where Fletcher is, where Tufts is, you get access to MIT and Harvard. So I got to, like, take space law at Harvard, which was really, really cool, and bring that back to Fletcher. And then, you know, talk to the folks at Fletcher who were doing, you know, we have, like, a security studies program. We have security, climate, like, humanitarian. And so telling them, like, hey, space is integrated in what y'all are doing. And then I really wanted to go commercial. Like, that's very much my personality, like, break things, go fast, like, ask people for money. And no commercial companies were biting. Like, there were a few that I was talking to, and everyone kind of ping-ponged me around. I did so many informational interviews, like, what do you do? Like, what do you want to do? And then one day, a girl who went to Alabama with me, she posted on LinkedIn about this job. And I looked at the congressman's committees, and each member of Congress is put on different committees. And one of his was space science and tech. They were looking for someone who had a connection to the state of Alabama, and, like, loved that I was into space policy. And it just was, I applied. I think I sent her my resume. They called me the next day. So it was a very, very quick turnaround. And I don't think that there was ever a thread. Like, there was a moment there where I was just like, I don't know what I'm going to do. And it's just crazy. And everyone was really supportive. And that's what I'm so thankful, was I was in an environment that was not cutthroat. It wasn't, oh, I want to be at this law firm and, like, you can't be there. I was actively studying for exams, writing my thesis, and had folks, like, sending me space jobs, like, hey, I think you'd be a good fit for this. Like everyone was very supportive, but at the time, like industry, I wasn't a business development person. Like I wasn't BD, wasn't really marketing. Government affairs folks really want you to have like some sort of government experience. So like working on the Hill. And so I think all in all, so lucky I ended up where I did, because now if I choose to like, go somewhere else in my career, I'm able to kind of navigate like the BD side, the government affairs side, and still be connected to space, but then branch out to other issue areas too. So that's a very long-winded answer, but I really don't know how I got here. I'm just kind of like winging it and having fun. Like I truly like, my boss asks us like all the time. He's like, are y'all having fun? Like, are y'all having a good day? Are y'all having fun? And we're like, yeah, like you have to make it, fun. And even on the days where you're not maybe having the best day, like take it as a learning opportunity and a learning experience and like go from there. So I don't know what the future holds. Like at the UN, calls I would answer, but at the same time, like I've gotten super involved in like STEM initiatives. There's I'm not in DC right now. So my boyfriend lives in Baltimore and has a house here. So that's where I am right now. But there is probably a 30-second walk from his house is this thing called the Digital Harbor Foundation. And they do a lot of like STEM initiatives with kids. And so at the end of the day, like I just want to be super involved in the community and do science with kids, because like I said earlier, like I wasn't that STEM kid. So I never got to like do the cool STEM things. And so now I get to do them like with kids and like with engineers. And I think that's really, really exciting. So, and it also helps I'm dating an engineer. So like I get to actually hear like what the day-to-day of an engineer is and how he gets excited about his work. So yeah.
That's awesome. Well, I love a long-winded answer too, because it makes my job as an interviewer much easier. And it helps a great deal to see you lighting up and like being speaking to like your level of passion for this. Yeah, I don't know. There's so much there. One thing that I really kind of loved that you said was initially when you were looking at law schools, you were having like some issues of like it didn't feel collaborative or like a forum and like getting to interact with folks in that way. I'm wondering how do you kind of work in that now in your current environment? It feels like it would be so collaborative and so much of like bouncing ideas off of each other. Is that right?
Oh yeah, when I say like we have the best team, so we call it the lead shop. And so the way it works in our office, we have our legislative director, we have our military legislative assistant, me, the legislative assistant, and then a legislative correspondent, and then our press assistant as well. And we are so like I think it's everything, like the environment. If you walk into any other Hill office or a lot that I've seen, you are in like a cubicle type style and there's like a little wall around you, which is wonky. And so you kind of have to like pop your head out to talk and you can't see everyone. We're not like that. Like we talk like, I rarely Teams people. Like I will Teams if I need to like really let out a thought or give like hey, this meeting is at this time. Can we coordinate the boss to come in and like more so coordination, but it's so collaborative and it's made me a lot sharper. Like I mentioned this to my team. Like I said, like we had I had my 1 year review and I was like, iron sharpens iron. Like we are not afraid to bounce ideas off of each other. I have no issue if anyone on the team says like, I don't understand that, or like, can you simplify this? Versus me too, we obviously are, so we are what you would call like a personal office. So anyone who works for a member is in a personal office, but then certain members are chairmen or women of committees. And so you have committee staff. And so committee staff, like they're called like PSMs, professional staff. They are also there to help us engage on certain issues. So for example, Crypto Bill called one of the girls who also a Princeton grad, which ties into all of this, but I was like, explain this to me like I'm 5 years old. Like I can just pick up the phone and call. There's some stuff that we've been working on with like sports and like everything going on with like name, image, and likeness, which has been really, really cool because going through football school and knowing that debate, and called the legislative director of a team that's working on that. And I was like, this doesn't make sense. Like, can we please hop on a phone call and just walk through it? And so I am so thankful because no one really expects us to be subject matter experts. It's more so tracking patterns, recognizing like the intent of like a language shift or language change, and then how that like would play into the policy if it's implemented. So I love it, and I would not be at my role or wouldn't have stayed as long as I've stayed so far if it wasn't super collaborative and if there weren't opportunities to grow. So something that I really, really love about the Hill is that they're constantly lunch and learns. I've done like these like professional development programs as well. So I got to do an AI policy lab, and it was like a 6-week training on AI policy. And then I got to do this like foreign policy kind of simulation too. It was kind of like Model United Nations in a way, but we were dealing with like appropriations. So like, where is the money going? And I think that is the best part of about my job is like, I can ask questions. I feel super comfortable with the team. And then if I want like extra learning or extra reading, I have access to that. And the best part, or one of the best parts too, is that our building is super close to the Library of Congress building. So any book that we want, we can get it delivered to the Library of Congress. So or from the Library of Congress. So I got like an aerospace engineering book that I was like sifting through. I got some cool just kind of space books that were recently published, like Who Owns the Moon? And then like this other one, like Race to the Moon. So like I can continue educating myself, and my team fully supports that. And I, can use them as a resource too. So I love it. Like I love that environment. And I think that's so important. And we don't work from home. Like I know it's a little different, like in this day and age where some people are remote, but we are there every day. And I think that kind of shapes that environment of like being together and like face to face.
Yeah, 100%. Well, I don't think that like just because of the nature of what you as a team are doing, having that ability to just look up and like immediately kind of bounce ideas off of one another, or like pose a question, or kind of like steer the conversation like that. I think that environment does really lend to like being in person in that way. I love working from home, but I think that if I was doing anything remotely close to that, I'd have to be able to like just look up and be able to talk to people in that way. And I love the idea to you mentioned iron sharpening iron, and just I don't know, it makes it feel much more that like you guys are a total unit, like one body, with some specific strengths that you're kind of bringing and adding to each other. I love that. That seems like such a cool opportunity and place to be. I feel like a lot of people don't get some of those opportunities. I'm glad that you have that.
No, thank you. Yeah, I'm so thankful, and I truly like was not expecting it. I told myself, like when I was going through the job, and I think about this now a lot because it's summer and we're having a lot of interns and folks want to grab coffee, and I'm like always more than willing to do that. Like I will talk, I will gab. I'm a gabber. Like I will let you know what's what, and I will give you like my honest, unfiltered, opinion. But I was not seeking this out. I truly think, and I read this in a book somewhere. I can't remember what book it was, but the guy had written, there's no ideal, like perfect job. There's the right person at the right like time and right place. And like the context that he gave was, I think it was like during the .com boom, where he was more so like a technical person that was pulled up in this startup to be in leadership. And he served for about a year or so. And then he said, my time, like I helped us through this transition of growth, and it's now time for me to step back and let someone else like take the reins, and I need to like move on. And I think that's an important thing too, is knowing when to move on. I'm not at that point now. Like I feel like I'm just now getting into it and being like sharper and knowing how things move and tracking things a lot more closely than I was when I first started. But I think it's really important to know that. So that's kind of how I operate. Like, I don't really think, I think it's important to like your job and like the people that you work with and work for. And that's another thing too. I always ask, especially when I was doing these informational interviews, I'd ask folks a really simple question. I would say, do you feel like you work with people or for them?
Mm-hmm.
And it was always interesting to hear their answer. Like most people said both, but like the people who said for, I was like, nope.
No.
Like we work with, we collaborate with.
Yeah.
It's not like a what can you do for me? Like it's like a how can we work together? And so I think that's so important. And I think when you have that mindset, you can really mold into really anything.
Yeah.
So yeah.
100%. Yeah, totally with you there. Well, it's just hearing about the all of the different capacities that you're working in, and the workload. It does sound like a lot, though. It seems like you're really loving it, and you love getting to collaborate with people. How do you prepare yourself for this? So what habits do you have that kind of help maybe encourage you to stay on track, or things that help keep you motivated or keep your energy up? What is that to you?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I mean, I think in a lot of ways I like have really that's what I love so much about swimming is like the mentality. And though I chose not to swim competitively and still like I should swim more. I live across the street from a public pool. So like there's no excuse. I should go and it's free for DC residents. I should go. But I think a lot of it's mindset. It's not just what you do. And I hate that I'm saying this. It's not the 9 to 5. It's like the 5 to 9, right? And so waking up a little bit early, like I first thing I do, I'll like open the windows. I have a beautiful kind of like bay window and I get to see like the green of the trees and like making my bed, having coffee, having a little snack. Like I'm a big treat yourself kind of gal. I'll like go get like a little croissant. I'm really organized at work. Like I have a little sticky note system. I have my calendar. That's another thing. We all have our calendars shared with each other so I can see and like toggle between like what folks are doing, being proactive. A good friend of mine, she told me, she's like, you got to manage up and manage down, right? And like over communicate. So knowing, hey, like, I'm trying to think of examples, like something might be happening in the district office, right? Or I might get I got information from the IRS about something that 100% impacts our district team and our like constituent services people who help folks with like casework, right? And so knowing how to like integrate that and weave that together. And then every day I make like a new to-do list. I love crossing things out. I have like a fat Sharpie. And then at the end of the day, I don't use it as much as like maybe someone who would do more like program management stuff would do, but I use Trello to like track like memos and where they are, like, is the memo with my LD or like, was the memo sent back to me? Is our LC, like, is she working on a memo for me that I need to like look over? So in addition to like that organization, which just kind of comes naturally, like before work, making sure I'm in a good headspace, like putting in my little podcast, reading. I mean, I wake up and immediately it's like Politico Pro, everyone, here's on deck what's happening in Congress, here's what time we're voting, like having that flow. And then after work, like I go to the boxing gym, I take a walk, I like meal prep, I prep my outfits. At least for Monday and Tuesday, I have outfits prepped because like I need to at least have that. And then just surrounding yourself with good people, like my friends. I have my Hill friends, right? And I have the people that I've met, but then I also have folks who don't work on the Hill. And I think just being able to like talk to them about the chaos or be like, this is like weighing on me. Like, how would you handle this? Like when situations might be a little tense, I think that's so important. So I try to stay positive, call my mom and my dad. And like, they're so cute too. Like they don't really have experience with like the Hill. Like when my mom found out that you can call your representative, she was like, oh, life-changing, because like people in the area don't do that. Like they like, no, that would not be a thing. And so talking to them and just having their excitement, or like calling my grandparents, and like my grandparents still remember Sputnik, right? And like when that went up and like the Russian like Cold War craziness. And so I think like talking to family and being able to like get excited about what I do and like have them ask me questions is so fulfilling and so worth it.
I love that. Yeah, that's great. Well, I love all of the little pieces that you mentioned that kind of help keep you on track. Those are a lot of those things are stuff for me that I found recently that I didn't realize how important they were in order for me to kind of be fulfilled with work or be productive at work. And I think it spills over into other aspects of life too. And I wanted to ask about that, because I feel like it's even more important when you're as busy as you are to stay organized and on top of those kind of things. You got to make the time. What skill did you have to grow throughout this time? Like there's obviously there's a little bit of adaptation. I would think that you'd probably say that you had some skills from that were already there. But what was something that maybe you started out not so good at that you had to improve upon, get a little bit better, do some growing there?
Oh gosh, I feel like I'm always thinking about that. I'm always thinking about growth, how to get better. I mean, patience for sure. Like I am really impatient, to the point where there was a time where I did not fill up my water bottle all the way, or even like pump gas, didn't pump my car up all the way, because I was like, nope, gotta go, just gotta go. And I think patience with myself. So knowing that like like the procedural stuff for Congress, or just communicating with those in my office, like patience there with myself, and then patience with other people too. Everyone on the Hill kind of has a style of, obviously we're all busy, we're all trying to promote our boss's priorities, but we do that in different ways. So like some people love to follow up, like circling back. Some people like to call. We've had other members of Congress call our office and be like, why are you not on my bill yet? Right? Like they're people can be, I don't want to say pushy, but they're communicating, like get on it in different ways. And so I think being patient and knowing like, hey, maybe I reached out to this person on Tuesday morning, I'm going to give them until Friday, or showing some grace with, like I said at the beginning, yes, there are young people on the Hill, but there are also people with families, people who have to drop their kids off at daycare, who might be getting married and planning that. And so giving them patience and them grace, I think that was a really big skill. And then more on the technical side, like writing and actually like looking through US code, like not a lot of people, surprisingly, love to read US code. And so actually, you don't say, right? Not the most exciting, but actually going through, and that took me meeting with, we have Ledge Council. And so meeting with Ledge Council and saying, okay, like, and it's kind of like an art, like they'll say like strike paragraph 2 with this. Okay, well, if we're moving this, like sometimes I wish I could print out the piece of paper, cut them, and like put them around, because like moving paragraphs around, moving words, that can completely change like the intent and the nature of the legislation. And so actually learning how to use legal text, or like read legal text, despite the fact that I'm not a lawyer, right? So reading that and then communicating to legal counsel, like, I want this change, or I want this precedent kind of set, I think has been really exciting for me. And we all joke, like, sometimes there are days in the office where we are full on like deep in code. And at the end of the day, I'm like, we should get an honorary law degree. Like that was like good on us, girlies. Like we did it. But it can be tricky. And that is a moment where you have to know how to use your time. Like if I'm on this issue for 30 minutes and I'm not going anywhere, I'm sending a text to legal counsel, or I'm going to walk myself up, go to an office next door that I know has a lawyer that I've befriended. It's my friend Tom. Love you, Tom. And I'm like, Tom, what's going on? I'm like, I need help. And he is a lawyer by training. So knowing when you might need to stop and then just ask for help.
Yeah, absolutely. Being able to use the skills of others like as a resource there. I think just continuing this theme of what you're talking about with the collaborative nature of your office and the people that you work with. Yeah, incredible. Well, I've got one last question for you, and then I've got a question from a previous guest that we'll go through these last two here. I don't want to eat up too much of your time before you head out for this wedding. So there does seem to be this dotted line connection with outer space and environmental sustainability. any overlap with frogs and space. I know that frogs are important to you.
I
So
love
I
that.
knew
I
that
love
if
that too. Hold on, I don't know if you can
it's
see it.
there we go. I love that. So I knew that if there was any kind of
Yes.
connection that you would have found it and identified it. So what is that? The
Okay, there are a lot. I will preface this by saying I'm like I said, I will gab, so I'm gonna like cut myself off, but I could talk. So there are a lot. The funniest one is that sometimes so Cape Canaveral, in addition to being like a wonderful launch site, and there's a launch on Saturday. Starliner will be launching. You said Boeing, they're launching their capsule, so super excited. There'll be astronauts on board going to the ISS. But Cape Canaveral, in addition to being, a NASA center having launch capabilities, launch and reentry, it's also a environmental like sanctuary.
mm,
And so sometimes when a rocket is launched, the frogs on the ground are so like they're lifted up by the propulsion. So sometimes frogs will be launched off the ground, which I think is adorable, but also terrifying. And then there have been frogs in space. So there actually was this frog named Mani, and he was in space for a little bit, and now he's back in Germany. And he's like the mascot of this German space company, and he survived. And then I think I've read this a few times. I need to like double check, like if I'm wrong, call me out, whatever. But frogs, the reason why we dissect them, which I hate that we had to do that in high school. The reason we dissect them is because their bodies are kind of like ours, like symmetrical, and like
mhm,
everything kind of looks a little bit like ours. So there have been studies done in space of if we take the frogs up and if frogs were able to breed, potentially there could be hope. There could be hope for us. So yeah, frogs have been to space. I adore them. I think they're wonderful animals. Obviously with sustainability, like you're seeing a lot of work being done, especially in Latin America, with like looking at deforestation, right? And like frogs get really finicky about their habitat. So like some of them can only live in like these like ephemeral ponds. I'm getting excited, but yeah, there's a lot of overlap. So ask me about it.
yeah. I love that. Is that so? I was looking at your LinkedIn. Is that the background picture that you're talking about with the
Yeah,
frogs being
yeah,
launched at Cape Canaveral? I love that.
yeah.
That's so good. All right. Well, I appreciate you entertaining all of my questions. One tradition that we do have though is guests asking guests questions. So I'll extend this opportunity to you as well. But Hassan Thomas was our previous guest, and his question for you is, what's the biggest highlight of your journey? And if you can throw in your low light as well, if you feel like you've got the time.
Oh my gosh, the biggest highlight and then the low light.
Gasp.
That's a really good question. I feel like the biggest highlight has just been, I don't know. I'm so bad with these questions. I think like the big milestones, like being able, like graduating college and having my parents there, having like my parents coming to our grad school graduation, being with all my friends, just like celebrating together and having my family there, having Will there, and just like how supportive my friends have been. I did like a space panel, and my friends, even ones that like don't do space, came, and like that means the world to like have friends who like cheer you on and who support everything, space, frogs, and everything in between. Oh, the low light. I mean, definitely like there were nights like the library where I'd get like a little sad, like internships wouldn't work out, or like job stuff wouldn't work out, and like that would kind of make me sad. But it all worked out in the end. Like I think like even when the light might not be as dim, like there's still some light there, and I really really tried to stay positive throughout all of it. So yeah, that's a good question though. I that's a good question. I'm trying to think. Am I supposed to ask the next person something?
Yeah. So now I want to
Woo!
give that turn to you. Is what's a question that you'd like to ask to whoever comes next?
Yeah. I would say like what, and I don't mean this in like a bad way, but I would love to know like what is something that like people fear kind of like moving forward in life, maybe not within themselves, but just overall, like, does anything like scare them, right? I think a big thing that draws me to space is that it is terrifying. And like people ask me all the time, would you go? Like, probably not, y'all. Like, I'm claustrophobic, and like so much can go wrong. And so I think sometimes, like, yeah, a good question that I probably should ask more people is like, what kind of scares you, but in like a that's terrifying, but I'm kind of excited about it kind of way. So I'm excited to hear what the next person says.
Nice. I like that a lot. I'm trying to add in some notes and caveat too about like, hey, I have like this respect for space, but I do find it intimidating, scary, kind of awe-inspiring, and stuff like that. Yeah, that's a great question. I think that'll evoke some good answers for whoever comes next. We'll have to see. But Sophia, thank you so much for taking the time to do this. It's been so fun to catch up with you. Do you have any parting thoughts before we close it out for the episode?
I just want to say thank you. I think that this is so cool that you've been doing this, and I've been following along. The first time that I listened to the first time I listened to this podcast, I had to go to my new doctor. That's a whole other thing growing up. It's like the healthcare thing. And it was raining, and I had a 25-minute walk, and I listened to this podcast, and it made me smile, because I was just like, we're growing. And at the same time, it feels like we're still young and we still have a lot to learn. So just thank you for doing this. And I really hope to see everyone soon. Like, if folks are in DC, holler. If you're in Baltimore, holler. You want to tour the Capitol, I'll give you like my chaotic version. But I'm excited to see everyone some way, somehow soon. And just happy Friday, happy weekend. Don't be a stranger.
That's it. Love that. Well, thank you so much for those words. We really appreciate it. That is going to conclude episode 37 of When I Was Your Age. If you've made it this far, maybe comment a frog emoji on one of our Instagram posts. That would be a fun way to let us know about that. But thanks for making it this time around, and we'll catch you in the next one.
Sounds good. Oh, I'm not supposed to talk. Sorry. Bye.
Bye.